Hey, everybody. We have Christine Oakley, Ted D'Amico, and Dr. Will and Dr. Ivette here. And they are both national grads, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves here. So,
My name is Will Adams. I graduated in April of 2019 from National, and I moved to South Florida. I'm in Miami, Florida, and I opened up my own practice with Ivette. And we moved down right after graduation. We opened our doors August 1st. So we've been open and running ever since then down in South Florida.
Yeah. So yeah, my name's Dr. Ivette. I graduated National in December of 2018, so practicing a little bit over a year and a few months. So yeah, we moved down to Florida together in May of last year, and we opened up our clinic in August and have been running ever since.
nice. Great. We'll start off. I have the very basic question that I think a lot of us struggle with coming into school. Or out of school rather. And it's kind of a change that you've seen in practice, right? Probably 10, 15 years ago, doctors commonly started their own practice. However, now you see a lot of doctors coming out, graduating, going into apprenticeships or internships or whatever it may be. So in the midst of all of that, I'm curious what made you guys want to start your own business, especially together. I think that's an interesting business dynamic.
Yeah. I never really, when I started chiropractic school, I never really had any intention of going to work for someone else when I graduated. Of course, if some excellent opportunity came by or I really found a mentor I really wanted to work for, I would have considered it, but I really always in the back of my head was thinking about opening my own practice. So even from the get-go, I was always thinking about in terms of going into my own and taking personal responsibility for educating myself on clinical stuff and business stuff and sort of getting my ducks in a row financially to make sure that I could do it in a way that wasn't going to put too much liability on myself and I could actually pull it off, because it is difficult and it's expensive to open up your own practice, but it's well worth it. So my approach going through school was I shadowed a lot of chiropractors, really just to, again, pull good qualities from all of them, and then try, when I opened up, try to take all the good things that I learned from a variety of different mentors and try to build a practice I was happy with, and even shadowing people in a lot of ways even reaffirmed me wanting to open my own practice, because, even if you go to a seminar and you see somebody and you like everything they're saying, and then you go actually spend like a couple days with them in their practice, and maybe that the way that their office is run or something about the way that they practice, you're like, oh, I would have done it a little bit differently than this, or I would do it a little differently than that. So the benefit of opening your own practice is you actually get to live out all those things. And the wonderful thing about our profession is, unlike, certain other medical professionals or even physical therapists, you really can kind of just open up your own practice and you can do it. I mean, it's, for a medical doctor, it's almost kind of unheard of to open your own practice out of school. And it's a lot less common for a DPT because they're a lot more ingrained into the inpatient system and stuff like that, and much more intertwined with health insurance. So with chiropractors being a little bit of being the redheaded stepchild of healthcare actually comes in handy when it comes to wanting to open up your own business.
Yeah. So I had a completely different experience than Will. I didn't know that I would open my own practice coming out of school. I went into chiropractic school. It sounds dorky, but I wanted to be a chiropractor since I was 10 years old. So I knew this is the path that I was going to take. But I didn't know that I would be starting my own practice until, we got together and we started talking about, our plans after we graduated. And so, I always thought that I'd be working for someone. And like he said, I shadowed different chiropractors. My last, semester at National, I did a preceptorship, and I worked in a multidisciplinary clinic just focusing on functional medicine. And I saw that it was something that I wanted to do, but the opportunity at the place that I was in didn't allow me to use all the various other tools that I had. So it just reaffirmed the fact that I wanted to practice my own way and do the things that I wanted to do my own way without having someone telling me, how I should practice. And so that's what kind of led me down this path. And talking with him, we were on the same page and we just wanted to continue on that path. So I didn't know that I wanted to open. I just fell into it.
That's great. I guess that kind of leads to a question also that I have. At what point in the program did you really start developing this idea? You said you kind of had it in the back of your head that you wanted to do this. And I think a lot of us kind of have. But, at what point did you actually start making that thought a reality?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, I believe it's try 6 or 7, where you do a business plan. So you actually make your own sort of mock practice and stuff like that. And so when I was in that class and we did that project, I kind of decided, you know what, this is a perfect time. Let me really try to do this for real and actually make a legitimate business plan. So I still have it here.
Yeah, we have it.
Miami Spine and Performance. I made a real business plan. I really prepared for it as if it were going to be my practice, and I used what I had put in there, actually opening the business. So that's where it started. And then once you get into clinic, try 8, 9, 10. I spent a lot of time try 9 and 10, particularly once the academics and the boards were behind me. I spent a lot of my time, if I wasn't with patients, I was doing something to try to get the practice going. And I was taking trips to South Florida to look at different office spaces and starting to put my ducks in a row. But it's tough when you're in school, I really didn't do most of the work until I had already graduated. And I was very fortunate that I had a couple of people ahead of me that had opened their own practice with a very sort of similar framework. So I, picked their brain, and that was extremely helpful. So if you're going to open up your own practice, find somebody who that your style meshes with, and you've seen their practice and it's along the lines of what you like. And then you just need that one-on-one sort of mentorship, and anybody that watches, I'd be happy to help with that as well. But there's just too many it's like you're too unconsciously incompetent when it comes to opening a business. You don't even know what you need to do. And so, you're always like, I remember opening up and, okay, you got to get your business set with the city, and then you got to or with the state rather. Then you have to have the county come do an inspection. Then you got to get your local business license. I mean, and it's different by every county and every state and every profession. And so there's a lot of stressful stuff because you don't want to open your practice and then you never got approved by the city. And so then you're in trouble. So find somebody that did it and just try to take their playbook if they'll give it to you when it comes to opening the business. That's what I did. And that's what made me comfortable opening up, is having, those people that were pretty much on call that walked me through it.
Yeah. We were so fortunate to have, the 2 people that kind of came before us and kind of laid down that blueprint for us. But another thing that I actually did, and this is where Will and I kind of meshed really well as far as our skills and our strengths, because he was doing more of the administrative work. And I was working at different chiropractic offices during the time that I was waiting for him to graduate so we could open our practice. I graduated in December 2018, and he graduated in April 2019. And so during that time, I was working at 2 different chiropractic offices and learning about their software, learning about, their appointment schedule, their scheduling systems, just basic office, information that you need to have in order to open up your practice. And especially if you're taking insurance, we're cash practice, so we didn't worry about it too much. But especially if you're taking insurance in your practice, you really have to understand, how to bill properly and how to code properly. So all of those things really mattered. Customer service really matters. And so, the way you pick up the phone can make a difference between getting somebody in the door and, deterring someone from coming in and going to a different place. And so those are the things that I try to learn in that time frame to understand what it would be like when we opened up our own practice.
Yeah, it's great. You guys kind of had a 1-2 punch there, kind of working together with that. And it's funny too. I always think back, you hear this in our school. I know Ted and Christine haven't quite gotten to some of the classes that I just went through, but they teach you how to code. They teach you how to code and they teach you how to do these things. But I feel like until you get out there and follow somebody, you don't really know what to do. At least that's how I feel. And then I kind of had a question. You answered it a little bit. Sounds like you guys are only doing a cash practice. So what made you decide that? Are you thinking about the future in terms of working with insurances? Or are you just kind of not even trying to struggle with that right now? What are your kind of ideas on that?
Yeah. Whether I wanted to go cash or not. And again, it comes back to, Dave Jolson and Bob Lutz, who both, Dave was like 2 years ahead of me. Bob was like 1 year ahead of me. A lot of people will like tell you that cash doesn't work, or you're just not going to make enough money, or, it's super important to go in network with insurance. And you definitely can you will build up more volume if you're in network with insurance. But you have to weigh the pros and cons of all the extra work that goes into working in insurance. You probably have to pay somebody right out of the gate to help you with all the coding. It takes time. So, you're going to constantly have to keep up with what payments are coming in, different disputes. And again, if you're in network with insurance, you are at the mercy of the health insurance companies for making your living, right? So you don't get to put a value on yourself. Somebody else puts a value on you, and then you just do the best that you can. So I didn't really like the idea of having my value dictated by the health insurance companies, because you've sort of seen a slow decline in reimbursement rates. It's not trending well in general at all, and that's across pretty much all insurances. So I was a little uncomfortable with that. But again, seeing Dave do it and be successful with it, seeing Bob do it and be successful with it, I felt like, what, if they can do it, we can at least give it a shot. So my tentative plan is, give it three years, 3 years of going just cash and see how it goes. I think that it's probably very contingent upon the community that you live in. Some communities, you're not going to do as well in a cash practice. And some communities, there's more cash available, obviously, so you can pull it off. It also depends on how you price yourself. And again, that's something that you sort of figure out as you go. You see what works. You might develop different treatment packages, treatment plans. You try to figure out what works, what people are willing to invest in, and at the same time giving them the care that you think. So so far, it's worked for us. It's worked for us just fine. We've been able to grow every month, and I'm happy that we went cash. But like I said, I think that it's partially due to the community that we're in. Miami, Florida is one of one. So I don't know if it would work the same everywhere else, but yeah, I've been happy with it overall.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I heard, from friends, from family. My sister was actually a manager for various chiropractic offices throughout the years. And one thing she said, well, you want to be able to, generate income right away and get people in the door right away. And the only way you're going to do that is by being in network with insurance. We found that wasn't necessarily the case, and that was something I was very worried about. But one thing I also learned is that it takes time to get in network with insurance. There's waiting lists for certain insurance companies. Blue Cross Blue Shield is the insurance company that usually has the highest rates of reimbursements for chiropractors. And, it takes time to get on those approval lists to be a provider for them. So that was something that deterred me. And, once we started meeting people in the community, and once we started, honing in on our demographic and who were the people that we wanted to work with, then we were able to say, you know what, cash is the right choice for us at this time. If we develop a great relationship with a primary care physician that will refer me, functional medicine patients or musculoskeletal patients or an orthopedic doctor, then we'll consider getting in network with whatever insurance company that they're in network with, just so we can have kind of a symbiotic relationship. But, so far it's worked for us. So.
Great. That's awesome. Actually, actually, I'll ask a question later. What early struggles have you guys had opening up a new chiro office? I'm sure you have a bunch of learning experiences, but if there's, maybe one or two big things, and I think especially what's unique for you guys is you're in a large city, like you said, one of one, Miami. And so, some people might have different battles in a smaller city, but what kind of is unique about practicing in Miami, and what struggles you came across?
I don't know.
There's so many.
We're such studs. I mean, I feel like we haven't had any obstacles. I mean,
That's exactly what I thought too.
Yeah, man. I mean, don't be fooled. Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for us, but gosh, I mean, you have so many obstacles, so many struggles. What you might see or perceive based on, you might think one thing, but the reality is, it's kind of a big emotional roller coaster being in practice. And her and I have different things that we struggle with. We've been fortunate because overall, like as far as opening, as far as finding our niche, getting people in the door, building our practice, it's been pretty smooth. I mean, we haven't had like any bad incidents with patients or like any negative experiences. So in a lot of ways, it's been very, very good, and it's gone, according to plan, which is great, and we're thankful for it. For me, it's just, when you own your own practice, you put a lot of pressure on yourself, because you don't have anybody to rely on. And so if something doesn't go right, for example, the thing that just kills me is if a new patient comes in, we have that initial consultation, we go through our assessment, I may or may not start treatment. I kind of walk them through my plan, sort of what I do, how I'm going to help them. And then they don't come back to that second visit. Like it's just a knife in the heart, it's awful. And it's happened a couple times. And when that happens, as somebody that owns your own practice, you just put it on yourself immediately. You just go, I must have messed something up, or I must, I suck, my business is going to be gone in 3 months because I'm horrible and nobody wants to see me. Right. So even if you see 40 people that week and, 38 of them are doing well, it just takes one experience like that for you to be like super hard on yourself. And what you have to realize is, to you, your office and your career is everything. But to your patients, in a lot of cases, it's just a little blip, especially with COVID and all the different things that go on in people's lives. You don't really know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know if someone's has a death in the family or divorce or who knows. But you just immediately assume it's because you're a bad clinician and you suck and you don't deserve to have patients, right? And I think anybody who like really wants to do good and really wants to improve probably feels that. So you get super humbled, you know what I mean, in practice. You get humbled because sometimes things don't go as you plan. Sometimes you really struggle to get people better. You get in your own way, you get lost in your treatment plan, and you just think, I stink, and it happens a lot. It happens to me every single week. So you really don't, you don't put a lot of weight on the victories, even if they way outnumber the defeats. So, my biggest advice is to, not to beat yourself up, because that I think is a big obstacle for everybody. If you have a slow week or something, you just put it on yourself because you're the business owner, even if you've done everything you can. So, there's a bit of a bell curve when it comes to lighting a fire in yourself. You can use failures to do better and to improve yourself, and you should, but don't let it, just destroy your psyche and make you feel terrible, because that's just self-sabotage, at the end of the day. So that sort of psychological battle with myself is probably like my biggest issue with opening the practice.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. You go through your assessment and you think, I had a great visit, we're on schedule, next visit is going to be better, we're going to do this, you're planning all this stuff. You go home, you think about your patients, you go to bed, you're thinking about your patients. I can't tell you guys, like in the beginning and even now, with certain patients, you take so much responsibility and it weighs so heavy on your heart because you really want to do a great job. I know the people that go to MPI and go to rehab club, and all those people are there because they want to get better and they want to improve their skills and they really care about improving their patient's health, and that really puts a great deal of responsibility on your heart. And you go to bed at night and you think about these people, you're like, they're probably not even thinking about this, like they don't care, but you are, because you care so much. And so, getting out of your own way and focusing on the good things and focusing on what you did well and what you can improve on is something that is more important for earlier in practice. And another thing I think that we struggled with, that we've learned from a lot, is kind of that connection with people and staying in touch. We met a really great real estate agent when we moved down to Florida that gave us a really great piece of advice, was that we were meeting people in the community, but we weren't following up. We were giving out business cards and we're like, yeah, we're going to see so many people and all these people are going to flood in the door. And it wasn't happening. We didn't get one call. We're like, what do you mean? We met so many people. We got out there. I was funny. I was saying all this stuff, they're probably going to come in, and they didn't, and so it wasn't until we had that meeting with this real estate agent that, he told us about the importance of following up with people and about staying in contact with them and staying in their minds. So that's one piece of advice that I would give people starting out in practice is, yes, you could be boots on the ground. You could be, out into the community doing all kinds of volunteering and educating and things like that. You have to make sure you follow up with people, because we didn't do that in the beginning. And it was something that we learned a lot from once we did. And it was very helpful for us.
Awesome. Yeah. I remember once last trimester with my sim patient, I was like trying to sleep and I was thinking about how I would treat them. And then I was like, what? It's a sim patient. They're not even like, there's nothing even wrong. I couldn't imagine what you guys have with like real patients coming in all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Okay, so next question. I'm kind of curious about what you guys do for your business operations. And in terms of that, I mean, like, you have a CA working for you. Who's doing billing? Who's taking notes? Is it just you two running the show? What do you guys use for your electronic health records? Things like that. So whoever wants to start and however much you want to talk about it, please go ahead.
Yeah, so the software that we're currently using, it's called the Jane app. And they sponsored the FTCA most recent, it wasn't a symposium, it was a
Summit.
Yeah. Summit. Yeah. So the Jane app is something that we looked into different ones. We looked into, Chiro Touch. We looked into Dr. Chrono. We looked at all the different ones and kind of compared. In the beginning, we wanted to keep the costs low, and we wanted to provide our patients with software that was, very easy to follow. So what the Jane app does is, it sends reminders, it sends text messages. It's very easy to read, very easy to follow. So we wanted something that would be, aesthetically pleasing to the patient and easy for them to understand, what their next move was. So whenever we schedule a patient, the patient gets an email that says, thank you for booking with Miami Spine and Performance. Please see your intake paperwork, and they can fill it out online. Our address is under there. Our cancellation policy is there. All the things that a patient would need to know were right there. So that's one thing. So we use that. As far as a CA goes, we do not have a CA. we run the show ourselves. And with everything that's going on with the pandemic, we've decided to block off the clinic. So we only allow one patient to be seen at a time. So if Will is with a patient, I will be manning the front desk. If I'm with a patient, Will's manning the front desk. Before, we didn't necessarily operate like that, but we had a great conversation with Corey, with Dr. Corey Campbell, and he gave us a really great piece of advice, because we were running into the issue about, talking about prices and costs with the patient and wanting to separate kind of the doctor-patient relationship from, the financial side of the business. And so Corey said, well, why don't you guys just delegate that task to the other person? So when Will is done seeing a new patient, I'm checking them out, I'm scheduling them, and I am the one collecting cash from them. So that was really, really important, because it kind of takes away that uncomfortable feeling about like asking people for money and, paying for your services. It just puts you in a weird position, because you're like, but, I just want to do a really great job, and that's all I want to do. I don't want to talk to you about money, because that's not what I'm here for. But obviously you're running a business. And so after Corey gave us that piece of advice, it was really helpful, because we were able to kind of delegate that task to each other and, take that burden off of ourselves. So that was helpful. The Jane app, scheduling, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we keep it simple
Keep it
because,
simple.
again, that goes back to even the cash practice thing. We maybe at work, if we did more, like if we really focus more on personal injury, but it's not all about money, really. I mean, if you can have a work environment that you really enjoy and isn't that stressful, and you're making enough to, cover your cost of living and stuff like that, I like that. And I think our patients also, I don't know, I mean, this is just me like insinuating, but they seem to sort of like the fact that it's just us two, because everybody kind of knows both of us. Particularly in South Florida, there's like practices where like they're really, really high volume, and there's just like tons of staff, and you get in there and, it's just very informal. So I think people sort of like it that, it's small like that. I mean, if you're a patient of mine, you really do develop like a relationship with me, because I am involved in all that. I'm not just coming in to adjust you or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that style for now. I'm sure that in time we'll end up getting an administrative person, somebody to run the front desk as we get busier. But right now we're able to handle it okay. We've had some instances where it's gotten a little too chaotic. Patients are coming into the waiting room and overlapping, and one of us is trying to do one thing. But overall, if we keep the schedule in a way that it's doable, and we really try to see everybody within 5 minutes of them, never be more than 5 minutes late. If that, most people we see right on time. So yeah, we just try to keep it simple right now, especially since, we're so early, 8 months 8 months seems like a long time. It seems like you learn a lot, but we're still little babies in the profession. So we're just figuring it out as we go. And for the next 3 years, I think we're going to try to keep it really simple. And then, maybe expand from there.
One thing that I wanted to add to that is, because we're so small, and because, we only see for now one patient at a time because of, the COVID crisis, but it really allows, like, if Will's seeing a patient and his next patient comes in and they're just like hanging out in the lobby, for me, it's super, super important to be able to talk to them and have a conversation, just kind of like, have small talk with them, just so they can feel comfortable and know that, they're not just another person, that they're not just in the waiting room, just like sitting there, waiting to see the doctor. And it's very it's very professional. It is, but I also want them to know that they're people, and I care about them, and I care about what happened, over the weekend, and I want to know about their lives. I want to learn more about them, because once you break that barrier with the person in the waiting room, then every time they come in, they're even more, excited to see the doctor. They're probably more likely to refer somebody to you, because they'll say, oh, the person at the front desk was so friendly. They asked me about my weekend. They asked me about my kids. All of those things are very important to people. And I think it really plays a part into kind of that doctor-patient relationship and just the overall feel of your clinic. So that's something else.
Absolutely. I think part of the reason why I got into this, and I think other people did too, is chiropractic has a unique ability to create like a community. And that's like one of the things that I've always found attractive about the profession. And I guess to that, I have another question that I just thought of. Do you think that the small business family mindset kind of chiropractic office can scale towards a larger practice? And if it can, how would you have to go about doing
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think definitely. One thing I was going to add, which is interesting, and again, I'm only speaking on like our experience, which may be like super unique, but I doubt it. Probably most like people that open up a practice have a lot of similar experiences. But for us, like, what you ultimately find is that like your practice is like built on like the foundation of like 5 people, right? Like we have one patient who found me through a certification that I had, and we've probably like gotten 30 patients from that person because he refers one person, they refer somebody. So you have like a couple of like, golden patients that ultimately like end up building your entire practice. And overall, like the people that come in that are a referral from an existing patient, especially if you're a cash practice, are always going to be better because they're already come in, they've already heard you're great, and they're already sort of in. I had something happen to me like in November, December, January, one of those 3 months, where I saw one person, might have been November, and it just shot through their gym, and I had a ton of people from one gym like in a week, and they all see me every single week. They're all athletes, and that, I mean, that right there, that makes such a big difference, So it's just funny how that works out, and I've heard other I think it was Rich maybe who said that before, that like you end up, your whole practice is just built on like a couple people that just refer people in, which is cool. So anyways, back to your question about scaling. Yeah, I'm sure it's possible to scale up. You've seen examples like Brett Winchester, for example. He started small, and he has a pretty big clinic with a lot of docs. Dr. King, I'm not sure. Maybe he always had a big practice, but it's definitely possible. Like I said, I really enjoy just like the low stress aspect of it. I have a lot of hobbies, a lot of things I like to do, a lot of other interests. So I like keeping work simple, trying to be, exceptional at what I do, and trying to market the practice well, and just let it do it that way. But yeah, the idea of doing a clinic gym hybrid, bringing in, a medical doctor or a DO or a PT or trainers, that all sounds really exciting. I love that model. I came from being a strength and conditioning coach before I went to chiropractic school. And that's something I'm still really passionate about. I've even tossed around maybe training people on the side just because I enjoy it. So yeah, it's totally scalable. But you definitely want to take your time. The big elephant in the room when it comes to opening your own practice is finances, right? Ultimately, you have to be in a financial situation to be able to do it. You don't want to incur too much debt or take out too much money and really bury yourself. You want a little bit of a cushion. So anytime you're going to level up, you just want to make sure that you're being financially responsible. So if you're someone that's really financially literate, great. If not, have a financial advisor, build a team. That's something that we did when we moved out here. An attorney, an accountant, financial advisor, put a team around you of people that you trust. And that's very important, people that you trust, and so get involved in your community, find those people, and then use them to help you with your business. And yeah, it's totally possible to scale, but it's also not for everybody. I might get 5 years down the line and have a super busy practice and the opportunity to expand and just say, oh, I'm good, I'm happy. I like what I do. I like whatever. I don't want the added responsibility. It's always a trade-off. So yeah.
What he said.
Hey, do you mind if I jump in for a question, Logan? Hey, Will, it sounded like you were alluding earlier that you were kind of preparing for much of this going into practice, and I think you were alluding to finances. Was there anything that you were doing focusing on, savings or brokerage accounts or anything that you can tap into as your source of finances before or once you actually open up your practice?
Just kind of the obvious stuff as far as trying to maybe work while you're in school, save a little bit of money, stuff like that. Because obviously school's a big expense in itself. You can open a practice for relatively cheap. I mean, you did it for $500. That's not really realistic. But you can do it for relatively cheap, especially if you're not buying an X-ray unit and you're not being, you can open it for a reasonable amount. But my big thing is just, I've already seen people, whether they're in my class, whether they're a couple classes before or in front or behind me, they try to open up when they weren't really ready. Maybe it was for financial reasons, maybe it was for other reasons, but they just tried to do it and then they had to back out, and then they ended up getting an associateship, and then ultimately you end up losing money. I just think having your finances in order, and if you don't, that's totally fine. Go work for a little bit, do an associateship. I know everybody's in a different situation, personally, financially. But I hate to see like classmates of mine that weren't really in a position financially, but they did it anyways, just because they wanted to just take a leap. But they weren't really organized enough, and now they've had to back out, and they lost a year of practice, and they lost a year of income. So just make sure that in addition to financial stuff seriously, and you seek out some financial guidance and learn about it on your own, because if you're like me and you went, undergrad basically into chiropractic school, you never really learned about being an adult and personal finance and stuff, because you've always been a student. So you've always been on the student financial plan. So I would educate yourself on, in addition to business and marketing, like towards the end of school, start to educate yourself on finance a little bit and personal finance, because I found that to be really, really important, opening a practice, because if you have a lot of financial stress, it's going to affect your ability to perform at your best, So try to set yourself up in a way where you can really focus on building a great business, being a great clinician, and, not necessarily worrying about putting food on your table like week to week or something like that, because then that can take away from.
Yeah. One thing I would add is that in the beginning, we were very conscious of, how, furnishing the office, all those things really add up, having business cards, brochures, like all the things that you need to do to be able to, put yourself out there in the community. And I think we were very conscious of not overspending, because you want your office to look beautiful. You want to have, state of the art equipment. You want to have all these beautiful things, but you may not necessarily be in a financial place to do those things. And so I'll be honest with you guys, I've had my chiropractic table since first try at National, and that is what I use today, because it works for me. I'm not kidding, guys. It works for me. I mean, I'm shorter. Everybody knows that I'm short. So it works for me, and it didn't really change anything about my treatment. It didn't change my assessment. It didn't affect, the level of care that I was giving my patients. So for me, it was a good trade-off. Like, I didn't necessarily need, a huge table or like the most expensive table, and say, okay, I can work with this for a few years until we are in a financial place to take it to some of the little things that we focused on, not necessarily buying normal tech boots right away, and not spending too much on things that could wait a little while.
So that applies to advertising as well.
Oh yeah, huge.
That's one of the number one. You will be attacked by vultures nonstop. Digital marketing people, advertising folks that promise, essentially tell you that you can pay for patients. Doesn't work Not true. It really doesn't. A lot of the cheap kind of corny advertising stuff, it works for high volume practices where, they brash, okay, let's get 3 more, but if you want to build a practice that's like sustainable and has the reputation for having high quality, you want to attract high quality patients. You don't necessarily want to devalue yourself by, throwing up special deal, $19.99 for this, and doing a bunch of cheap advertising. And that is a very quick way to bankrupt yourself, is overspending on marketing and advertising. There is so much grassroots and digital stuff that you can do completely for free or for very cheap that have way higher return on investment than, joining a local weightlifting gym is going to be a way bigger ROI than probably spending thousands of dollars on Google ads, So get out there in your community, the grassroots marketing, the digital marketing, and there's a lot of stuff that you can learn to do on your own. There's a lot of really good resources out there. You don't need to pay somebody to set up Facebook ads. You don't need to pay somebody to set up MailChimp email services. You don't need to pay a marketing person. You can do it all yourself, especially when early on you have a lot of time. 70% of my time is on business and or marketing related stuff. 30% of my time is seeing patients probably. So you have a lot more time to learn that. So my biggest piece of advice, in addition to obviously keeping personal expenses down, but everybody sort of knows that, but don't try to throw money at potential patients. It's a big mistake. And I could see how businesses could go under trying to do that too much and just trying to buy their way into building a successful practice, because I don't think that happens.
I think that's awesome advice. And I think that's going to segue nicely into our marketing section that we're going to get into here. But before we do, I just want to ask kind of a little bit of 2, maybe 3-part question in relation to our lovely school and schooling and how well they treat us or train us rather in business. So I guess the main question for students that I want answered, and anybody listening to this, is what's one piece of advice you would give to students through the chiropractic program who are struggling with their future plans? And their future plans can include, what do I want to do in practice? Do I want to start my own practice? Do I want to be a rack 'em and crack 'em doc? You let your mind go on that one. And then my other question is, what do they not tell you about, what do they not tell you in school about running your own business? And do you think this is something that they can change? Or do you think it is one of those things that you were just going to have to buckle down and learn once you get out there? So pick whichever question you guys want to answer, but yeah.
Yeah. There's so many thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's a deep question.
Okay, so first question was about advice to students about who are struggling with what they want to do in practice.
Yep.
The biggest, it's kind of a cliche answer, but shadowing is really like the best way and really the only way to get that kind of experience. Because I remember going and shadowing certain people, and like it lit me up for like the entire trimester. Like that one experience made me so excited that lasted for like 15 weeks, so nothing will fire you up. There's no seminar, there's no club that will fire you up more than going to a practice and just being pumped about what you see, whether it's the outcomes, whether it's the atmosphere. So I had a couple of those experiences that just made me super excited to session and super excited to see patients, because, it's different. It's one thing, I taught a rehab club when I was in school, and I would talk about different techniques and different this and that. But I'd never seen any I was giving you my best guess based on what I knew, what worked, based on what other people said. I didn't really know. So until you really see patients in the clinic and you really see someone that's successful with those patients, you don't really know, you don't really get it. It's really, really easy to teach a seminar and say, do this, do this, do this, do this. It doesn't always work like that in the real world, so getting out in the real world is number one. And I also had experiences on the other end. I'm sure all of you guys, you're all super active. You probably you've shadowed people and like, you just couldn't wait to get out of there. You're just like, oh my gosh, so it goes both ways. The next question was about teaching business in school.
Yeah, like marketing in school.
Yeah, I don't want to throw any professors under the bus necessarily, because it really is hard to replicate again the real world in a school setting. What you get inside on campus at National is really not very much like real practice at all. Not all that helpful, not all that related. I think academic institutions across a variety of different disciplines deal with that issue. People come out of business school and, they don't really have any applicable skills. They learn on the job, right? So it's not just chiropractic school. It's not just National. So I don't want to single them out because I know it's across all academic institutions. But some things that I think would help is maybe bringing in people like maybe myself or someone like Dave, who's got a couple more years experience, bringing in people in the field, kind of like this conversation we're having right now. Maybe if students heard stuff like this, especially if it was like a recent grad, because I can give you real world advice, because I'm a fresh grad that opened up his own practice in 2020. So I can offer what's actually going on out there, at least in our community and with our situation. And I would really like to see more encouragement of putting students with docs, putting students out in the field. I know when I was a student, it was like kind of difficult to preceptor. You weren't allowed to take off class to shadow. And so it was very hard to shadow because you had to, barter with teachers or just skip class. And
yeah,
so it's difficult to even get that real world experience, especially when you're in class all day, all week. So if they open that up a little bit, allowed a little more flexibility as far as getting out in the real world, I think that would be great, because I think that would help students a lot. If they have, the more mental pictures they have of what real practice looks like, the more one-on-one conversations they have with practice owners, the more they learn about systems, the better. But at the same time, again, when I was in 7th Tri, I knew I wanted to open my own practice, but I wasn't really actively, other than the business plan assignment, I wasn't really putting a lot into motion because I was still quite a bit out. And a lot of people in 7th Tri don't even know, at that point, they don't even know if they want to be a chiropractor anymore. They don't know what they're going to do. So it's challenging. It's challenging to get fired up about business and marketing and coding when you're still like 14 months out from even graduating. So I would really like to see again, it comes back to like the preceptorship stuff, more resources for 10th tries, maybe like 10th try, because we all know 10th tries kind of sit around, they get their numbers and then they just sit around for like 14 weeks. So, do some like with them, do some like bring in some docs and let them talk about their experience and mentorship, really focus on the 10th tries, because 10th try is really when the reality starts to kick in that you're about to get dumped into the real world, whether you like it or not. So I would really like to see more resources for 9th and 10th tries, less wasted time, because there's just not enough patients to go around. There's just not enough activity. I was at Salvi. There certainly wasn't enough activity there. There's not enough at the clinic. The younger tries are trying to get their feet wet, and the 10th tries are a little checked out, understandably so, after getting whipped around for 3 years. So, giving them more resources, I think, would help a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And the first question I want to answer because okay, he's gonna clack. The first question I do want to answer because I always knew that I wanted to have some kind of involvement with nutrition and functional medicine, and I didn't really know how to get there. And that was a big struggle of mine because I was taking all these seminars and I said, well, I want to be an MSK doc and I also want to be a functional medicine doc and I want to do all those things together. And, at first it was a struggle to try to pinpoint exactly what I wanted to do. And so, I did all the things that you guys are doing, taking seminars and trying to learn from all these people. I mean, just like hearing Corey at a seminar almost made me want to cry because he's just like, he's so motivational and he's so inspiring to so many students. And so, all those things really light a fire under you. And like Will said, shadowing doctors that are doing what you want to do. It sounds like such a generic piece of advice, but it really was so helpful for me, especially. I was doing my my clinic shift, and after my clinic shift, I would go downtown Chicago and shadow my mentor. Now she's a functional medicine doc. Even before I started my preceptorship, she gave me an opportunity to get in her, to get in there with her and see patients one-on-one, really dig into, lab analysis, stool analysis, saliva, all these things, hormone panels, and all these things that I knew nothing about. That Dr. Gitcom just kind of said, oh, are you going to look at their stool? It's just like, it doesn't really make sense until you see it in practice. And so, that having her was really, really crucial for me 9th and 10th try, because I was able to take so much of what she taught me and now apply it into practice. So, I would encourage you. I know it's so hard because you guys are stressed out, you're studying. I remember what that was like, waking up at the crack of dawn, going to Starbucks and studying for God knows how long. I know it's really hard, but, trust me when I say there you go. Trust me when I say it's I wish I could join, but I only have a candle. I wish I could say, there's an easy way to do it, but it's not. You just have to try. There you go. So you have to try your best to get out there, over the weekends, have conversations. I remember I felt weird calling doctors or even emailing doctors and saying, hey, can I come by your clinic? I thought they were these untouchable beings that, they couldn't be bothered because they were so busy. But so many docs are so receptive to having you in their clinic. I shadowed Dr. Menerick, and she was so nice. She was so welcoming. Her staff, her patients, all these things. They were so important for me to see good doctors doing great work, and that really lit a fire under me. And so, I just really, I couldn't stress this enough. I encourage you guys to just get out there, try to learn from more than just the books and more than just the seminars. Try to get yourselves in the door with a different doctor, a doctor that you see yourself practicing like. I almost thought about flying to Canada to see Dr. Maki. I was like, I'm going to go to Canada. I don't care, so that was something that I thought about doing at one point. I told them, I'm like, you think I could just fly to Canada? Who could I stay with, So
I mean, if you still have plans to go, I might join you.
The other piece I would love to go. And so, that's another female doc, that I was so impressed by, because she, she had so much strength. She had so much knowledge. I said, I want to be exactly like her. I want to do all the things she does, So that was really crucial for me to experience, going to the MPI seminars and getting involved. Yeah, there you go. And another thing I think National could do better with is I had a heck of a time getting approved for a preceptorship. I mean, I was at, I don't know whose office I was trying to get approval, but I did the work to try to get the result I wanted. So I hope that they could improve on that, and they could allow students to take at least 1 or 2 days and not necessarily count it against them when they want to go see a doctor, or if they want to preceptor someone, because it's going to be better than sitting around in the lunchroom or wherever it is with all the other students not doing anything. So
Where's the lunchroom?
Well, whatever. They look like lunch tables. I don't know.
Yeah, they are lunch tables. I'm pretty sure I noticed
They're
that.
definitely lunch tables. Thank you.
Well, that was awesome advice too. I want to comment. I think they've made the preceptorship program a little bit easier. Me being an 8th try, I'm going to figure that out for sure in the next coming months. So maybe I'll let somebody know. But I have noticed a couple people have pretty easily gone into their preceptorship, as long as the doctor is associated already with the school or whatever. The doctor's not, I think that's where they're running into more issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, those are both of you guys. That was awesome advice. I really hope people listen in on that, especially with the shadowing, I want to say. Okay, but now I want to get into kind of marketing a little bit. I think you guys have done a great job. I look at your website consistently, and kind of thinking through my own thoughts of like how I want to model it. It looks similar, things I want to do differently. Did you guys like outsource a company with that? Where did you find that company if you did? What was kind of your thought process to get those websites up, to get the operating system? Like, I'm just curious what you guys did there.
Yeah. Again, I have to give 100% credit to Dave and Bob because they, completely, lit the match for our practice. Without those two, I would have been really lost. So I kind of followed, like when, as far as starting out, I kind of followed what they did. We used their website designer and their graphic designer to design our logo. Obviously, we customized things to what we wanted, but the general like skeleton of the website came from what Dave and Bob had already done. So that was good. And then over time, we've learned things like SEO, search engine optimization, making your website more, making it more available on Google as far as like people searching chiropractor in your area. So a lot of the content we always try to balance uploading valuable content because we realize that in our community, the other chiropractors like graduated before I was born, so I mean, it's two totally different generations. If anything, our biggest competition is like massage envy, because everybody down here, when they get hurt, they go to massage envy. So, that's what we're competing with. So we've tried to make ourselves the chiropractors in the community that, number one, we go to everything. We're like at every race, we're at every chamber thing, we go to community stuff, and we're just like out in the community because we didn't know anybody when we moved here. Have any connections. We didn't have any like hookup. Like my first patient was somebody that I met doing jiu-jitsu. We didn't have like family friends rolling in and anything like that. So we completely started in a brand new city. So in addition to doing a lot of the grassroots, we really wanted to upload like actual educational content, like stuff people can read and benefit from on their own, because I think that helps build your authority a little bit. So we try to do, we do stuff with the website to try to make it better on Google to rank locally. So sometimes the way we word things might read a little bit weird to like, if one of you were reading it, you'd say, oh, that seems a little weird. But sometimes you do things to make it better on Google. But you can go on the far end of that spectrum. And if you look at, for example, someone else in our community, they'll upload a blog that's just, it'll just say, the city we're in is Hollandale. So it'll say, Hollandale chiropractor near you in Hollandale, headache, Hollandale low back, Hollandale Beach, Florida, Hollandale headache. It's just a bunch of words. So hopefully Google picks it up, right? So you can go on the far end. That's not actual useful content. So we upload blogs. We try to keep our social media busy. Obviously, we're pretty young. So being on social media is important. Our community is pretty old, pretty, diverse as far as culturally, ethnically. It's hard to read. I still don't really have a good read on our community. We're not in Elmhurst, where it's like everybody's kind of the same, right? You know what I mean? So it's such a diverse area, which is cool. It's a very cool challenge. But we're still getting a feel for the community. People in our community don't go on social media that much, or they're not that active in general relative to like Greenville, where Upstate Spine and Sport is, where Dave Jolson's at. They have a big social media buzzy community. You can feel it when you see one of their posts. Everybody comments. Our community is just not like that. It's people that are Miami people are a little private. They're not really into that sort of thing. So we're slowly trying to build the social media, and again, just provide quality to people. But it's such a learning process. I mean, I could not tell you. Anthony Kopp, a good friend of mine, just opened his practice in Kalamazoo. I couldn't tell him necessarily. I could tell him what we've done and what's worked, but I don't know if necessarily that would work in Kalamazoo. It's really dependent on your community, and you don't know your community unless you go out and be part of your community, right? So we've been undercover agents going out to every event, trying to get to know people and trying to put our thumb on what drives our community. You know, who are the people that are influential? Where are the active people? Where are the people, you know, where are the CrossFit gyms? Where are the Orange Theories? What sports do people play? And then we cater our content to try to attract those types of people, you know?
Yeah.
Great. I think that's awesome stuff, especially. So I guess I'll just get into this question now. Sounds like you guys both tend to do grassroots marketing more than anything. My next question was going to be, what are you using in terms of online presence for marketing? So, you know, Google ads. I was going to ask about SEOs, but you kind of covered that. So Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. Are you guys kind of staying away from that and trying to do the grassroots just to get more bang for your buck? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we've experimented with Google ads and Facebook ads. We've gone on and off. We shortly worked with a company that was recommended to us to sort of help with that process. But I don't think we got one patient from any paid ad. I don't believe so. We get, and still we're very new in our community. Our website is new. We're just now, because we grinded really hard during COVID to make our website really, really SEO friendly. We're just now ranking really well in our community. So such a huge percentage of our patients are grassroots and referral, you know, like 90% probably are either a patient in our office referring somebody or somebody we met at an event or at a sporting thing that we were at. There's definitely value to the paid ads. There's definitely an art and science to it. And there's a lot of good resources on how to do that. Again, it depends a little bit on what drives your community. I mean, I would read stuff and I'd listen to podcasts about how to optimize Facebook ads, and I'd talk to companies about this is how and a lot of it made sense logically. And so we did it for a little bit, didn't put a whole lot of money into it, but we did it for a bit. And it was just a huge flop, you know, complete failure, big waste of money. And that's just something you have to learn from trying, you know. So our community, whether it was the way we optimized the ads pretty well. Our community just didn't respond to that. And one interesting thing that we've noticed as well is like Bob is in Tampa, Florida. You guys know Bob Lutz, right? I'm not. Yeah.
I know okay. Dave. I kind of know of Dave. I don't know who Bob is at all.
Bob.
You gotta know Bob.
Bob's a great guy. He helped run the rehab program before. Okay. So in Tampa, like 1/3 of patients in Bob's clinic book online. In our clinic, I just looked at the numbers yesterday. Not even 1% of our patients have booked online. Not even 1%, which is kind of crazy, right? 99.3% of the people that have booked at our office have called, whereas in Greenville and Tampa, 33% booked their first visit online, which is really crazy. And it just goes to show you have to read your community. You know, a Facebook ad plan and a Google ad plan that sounds great. It's all logical. You know, you're going to run these ads. You're going to spend $700 on ads. You're going to get 6 patients. They're going to be worth this much money. It all sounds great. And you won't know until you try. But, you know, if you fail and it fails, don't be afraid to pull it back and say, maybe there's another way to go. You know, this is not a good investment. And again, it comes back to, you know, when we open up our practice, we want to build our practice. We want patients in the office. We do anything to get patients in the office. But try not to spew money, especially if you're not keeping tabs on if it's working or not. So paid ads, it definitely can be valuable, probably in certain communities for certain clinics. For us, it didn't work. Not to say we'll never do it again. Not to say it couldn't work. It just didn't work for us. So we focus mostly on the grassroots, a little bit on the digital, and we're slowly trying to build our way into getting to know attorneys, getting to know medical doctors. But that takes time, and can't really force that. So we're always trying to improve our marketing, improve our message, and reach more people. But it's constantly evolving.
Well, that was awesome. I guess one thing I've always struggled with, because you're talking about grassroots marketing so much, is I think it's great. I think, going to events is awesome. But how do you get involved in those events in terms of how do you just show up and have a booth, and what do you say to these people that are coming in? I guess where I'm struggling comprehending it is, I've had my next door neighbor come up to me and say, I have knee pain. And I'm like, well, I can't just tell you what to do for your knee pain in 5 minutes, So how are you treating these events when people are coming up to you with these sores, these aches? What are you saying to them? How do you get them into office? That kind of thing.
Sorry, is the question, how do we get involved in events, or how do we treat people at events?
A little bit of both. So like, how do you get involved in the event? Do you have to pay for a spot? Do you have to do whatever? And then how do you treat people at the events in like those 5 minutes that you have with them, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Really great question. Okay, so there are a couple of ways. So some of the events, some of the educational based events that we do are usually through the chamber, and they'll be through your chamber of commerce, your local chamber of commerce. If you have kind of more active chamber of commerce, we're involved in 3. And so one of them is usually more active than the other 2. So that's the one that we focus our educational kind of marketing strategy towards. We've also done, workshops at my CrossFit gym. We've done workshops at his jiu-jitsu gym. We've done workshops at Orange Theory. We've set up booths. And the way that we set up booths and get in the door with these companies is we just, contact the office manager, we contact the owner and try to establish a relationship with them and say, hey, we are willing to come in and provide your members with recovery services, meaning, we'll hypervolt them, we'll stretch, we'll use the Normatec booths, we'll educate people on certain things, and we'll say, we'll do this completely for free for 3-4 hours on a Saturday, Sunday. And you just have to give us the opportunity to come in, bring our business cards, and just talk to your members. And so usually they're okay with that. I don't think we've ever gotten a no from anyone.
Not like a direct
no, but
yeah.
But we've gotten the opportunity to get in there with these people because we approach them. I mean, one day we were leaving the grocery store and there was a cycle bar right near the grocery store, and Will's like, let's just go in and see if we can talk to anybody. We did. The owner was there. He was super friendly. He was like, yes, come in next weekend. We're like, great. So I guess my best piece of advice is like, you don't know until you ask. So don't be afraid to go into these businesses and ask them if you can come in and provide a service. We did a recovery workshop at my CrossFit gym even before I joined. And so they were super nice people. They were more than willing to, help their members recover, and they allowed us, to come in. So that was really helpful. The educational stuff is also really helpful. As far as the races go, we usually don't pay to be involved in a race. Will found a website. What is it called?
Which one?
The website for the races.
Oh,
we'll get back to you.
Remember.
So there's a website where you can find a list of races in your community, like 5Ks, all these things. And usually the races that are at no cost for you to set up are usually the races that are, for a specific cause. And so it's great because you feel like, okay, I'm providing a service, a free service, and I'm, participating in this great cause, and I don't have to spend any money. I can just, spend my time and dedicate my energy to that cause and in that specific race. And, if I meet a patient, if I get to educate on the community, if they think of me months later, great. And that has happened. We've had a couple patients that call and they're like, hey, Matt, you at a race, and you pretend like you remember them because that's the nice thing to do. and then, you attack it that way. And your other question was about like, what do you do if people come up to you and say, hey, I have knee pain, I have back pain? Usually, we're not going to treat the patient there. What I usually start doing, is introduce myself, I start asking them questions about their pain. Let the person know that they have your attention, that you care about what's going on with them, and then, get background about what's going on, and then talk to them about your approach. You can do a quick, easy like screen. You can, just check their range of motion. If you practice MDT, you can look and see if, a knee is a super easy thing to check for. You can see if, you can palpate around the knee. You don't necessarily have to apply any treatment, but you can just, take a look and see, if there's an obstruction or what's going on with the person. And then based on their history and based on what you're seeing, you could say, well, usually, if we see something like this, it'd be beneficial if you come in the clinic, that way we can do a more thorough exam. And that way people feel like, number one, they listen to my problem, they care about what's happening, and they want to provide me with a solution for this issue. And that's usually how we get people in the door. We genuinely care and we want to help them, but they understand that we can't, help them right then and there, that we can't ice their pain away, we can't take their pain away, we can't apply treatment there. And so the best, the best case scenario is having them come in the office and buy into your style. You tell them, we're not just a chiropractic clinic. We do physical therapy, we do rehabilitation, we do manual therapy. We apply different tools on a case-by-case basis because not everyone's the same. So if you come in our clinic, you're not just going to be adjusted full body, you're going to be assessed. And then after your assessment, we'll determine what the best course of treatment is for you. And people love that. They understand. They're like, oh, okay, they care. It's like getting your hair done. I want highlights and I want them to look like this, it's just like that. So.
Yeah. I won't add much more, but I know that, one thing that people ask about and is very nerve wracking is like when you come to a new community, you're trying to like reach out to people, to get opportunities, because everybody says, oh, go out into your town, reach out to the gym owners, reach out to these people. But it's really, really nerve wracking for most people, I think, for me included. I'm pretty introverted, so networking, cold calling is like, it's like nauseating, so it's something I had to get over a little bit. But, so if you're uncomfortable cold calling or stopping by, you're just like freaking out, then just send them an email. You know what I mean? Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And ultimately, the organic relationships are the ones that are going to thrive anyways, right? So, if you're physically active, which I hope you are, if you're a chiropractor, surely you're into something, whether it's running, Olympic weightlifting, MMA. Go to a local gym, become a member, and become the go-to guy at that gym, right? That's been huge for us. I'm the doctor for my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. When anybody gets hurt, they come see me. Pretty much non-negotiable, and I've developed that reputation there. And pretty much at our CrossFit gym as well. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our CrossFit gym had to permanently close down, which is really unfortunate. But prior to that, we got to know the coaches really well. We worked, she worked out there. I trained there occasionally. We stayed in close contact with them. And if someone got hurt, we'd get a text message. Hey, I got a guy. He hurt his back. When are you available? So it's not about reaching out to every gym, within 10 miles and being everybody's guy. But building a few, like I said, building a few organic relationships can build your entire practice, So, make it as organic as possible. Because at the end of the day, if you go to a gym and you don't, we've gone to things and we just don't click with the members. We didn't click with the owner. People weren't into it. They were like looking at us weird. So we didn't like force the envelope, and then we go to other places and we do talks and they're all over it. A good example, now I'm rambling again, but whatever. A good example is we went to a very high-end gym in our area. Really nice high-end gym. And I was like, yep, we're going to get in here. We're going to do something. We showed up and they were like, yeah, okay. And we ended up making another good connection there through something else. But they introduced me to the head trainer. He was like, yeah, cool, man, whatever. And I was like, hey, can we come by and, we'll either talk to the trainers about something or we'll set up a recovery station and treat members between 10 and 1 or whatever. He's like, yeah, cool, whatever. And then we left. I texted him. I followed up. Never heard back. Okay, whatever. Not going to happen. They weren't into it. Probably 6 months later, the same guy gets injured, comes into the clinic because he remembered that I had come there. He remembered me. He came into the clinic, and this is the head trainer at this big, nice gym. Came into the clinic. We had a ton in common. We clicked. He's a patient now, and I was there the following week doing a seminar for all their trainers, and it just happened organically, So don't beat yourself up if you're not, if you're like, oh, I'm not cool or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's about being a good person, and you'll build organic relationships, no matter what. So.
That's awesome. I think I do remember a teacher saying that once in one of our business classes, that you don't know how long it might take somebody, but they do remember you when something goes wrong. And she's like, it's amazing how, like, it'll be 7 months down the road and they'll contact you. So I think that's kind of cool to hear that, especially the organic part that came afterwards. You kind of touched on it earlier, and I think this is always a dreaded question for students in the chiropractic program. There are nemesis in the fields, and it's the MDs of the world. I think we ourselves have created like kind of a weird dynamic with them, which I'm not too sure why. I think we both kind of are all on the same team of the patients here, but have you started working with them? What's it like working with them, and how are you trying to get into that thing? I'm not even sure if you can without insurance, right? Without working under it. But
Yeah. As far as medical marketing is one of the areas where I'm constantly trying to, we've tried a little bit, to be completely honest. We haven't tried as hard as we can to connect to medical doctors. We've met with some surgeons one-on-one. There's a surgeon in our building. We've tried to reach out to primary care doctors. For the most part, they're not really in. They didn't really. The doctors didn't want to meet with us. Our area it's kind of heavily dominated by 2 big hospitals, and those hospitals don't really associate with like outside chiropractic. They have physical therapy, they have sports medicine. There's not a lot of like young MDs in private practice. There's none, right? So it's mostly big hospital systems. We have gotten to know people from those hospital systems, but it's been kind of tough to network with them. And of course, the big red herring is the fact that we don't take insurance. We did make a good connection with an orthopedic surgeon, but it's tough. They're an insurance practice. Their patients are used to taking insurance, or the provider taking insurance. So for us being a cash practice, it's hard for us to integrate into that, and that's what I've heard from one guy that I shadowed quite a bit when I was in school was Tom Lotus, and he was like majority seeing MD referrals when he was in private practice. But he was in network with Blue Cross, which all his referring physicians were as well. So it was really easy to streamline that. So that's been one of the things we've been sitting on a little bit, and trying to let it happen organically. Because again, other chiros that I've talked to, especially cash-based ones, eventually, you put yourself out enough, you develop a good relationship with a physician organically. Whether it might be down the road through your kids are on the same soccer team and you strike up a conversation. So we're not really forcing it. I know that they'll tell you, okay, send cookies to doctors' offices and send pizza and blah, blah, blah. We haven't done that. Just a little weird. I don't know. We haven't done that. So I don't have a lot of great advice for medical marketing, especially being a cash practice and being so new in practice. But there definitely is, if you practice in a certain way, there definitely is the opportunity to have a good symbiotic relationship. And I know that if you are able to build a good relationship, especially with a primary care physician, that could be a game changer as far as your practice. That could help a lot. So it's an area that deserves a lot of attention. We just haven't focused on it too much so far.
Yeah. One thing I will say, that if you are a doc that plans to be in network with insurance right away, or you are an associate doc, let's say that you want to get it, in connection with an MD or an ortho or anything like that, I think one thing that you can do is, it's difficult because you kind of got to get through the barricades to get through the doctor. So you got to get through the front desk staff. And then after you talk to the front desk, you got to get through the office manager. And then the office manager has to like you so she can say, oh, it's okay for you to talk to the doctor. So if you are in network with insurance and that's kind of the relationship that you want to have with these doctors, just do your best and be persistent. I know one of the girls that I graduated with, she practices functional medicine in Indiana, and she says, I start off with a letter. I have like a pre-made letter. I bring them a basket of goodies and cookies and things like that, and I ask to do lunch and learns. And so some offices are very receptive to that. They're like, okay, free food, like we'll listen to you for 30, 40 minutes if you're going to provide lunch. So if that's something that you want to do and you think that would be valuable to your practice, go ahead and just give it a shot. You can try to do that with some of those clinics and try to go for the smaller ones because again, the bigger hospitals usually have their really tight network. So if you can get in, with the urgent cares, especially, that's a big one. You can do it that way.
Great. Yeah, I know Lotus is over at was it Rush right now, and hopefully we're gonna have him on next week and learn a lot more about that and how he managed to get involved in that's a huge hospital. I'm like super curious to hear what he has to say about it. Okay, and then I guess I got just one more question really on the marketing aspect, and then if you guys want, I want to be cognizant of your time. But if you want, we can go into how you guys practice in terms of like assessment and stuff. But if not, we can end it after this marketing and then the hot seat questions. But yeah, I just want to cover the social media part of the marketing. I know you guys, I follow you guys on Instagram. You do a couple of good posts. And, I guess the question is for those who aren't big social media people and don't want to do it, do you think it's a necessary evil? Do you think that you're getting good information out there and thus good patients back to you? And what do you think about just social media in general?
I'm not a big social media person, and interestingly, her and I, we don't agree on our social media. I have my feeling about how we should use our page. She has a different feeling about it, and we compromise on it. So that's one of the areas where we disagree. But we found a compromise, and it's fine. The only scenario in which I could see social media not mattering is if you were extremely good to the point where you had built so much word of mouth referral that you were just sort of this, wizard off the grid that people knew about. And there are practices like that. There are practitioners that are like that. They don't really use social media. They don't really have much of a digital presence. They're just that good. But nobody coming right out of chiropractic school is going to be that good. Even if they think they are, you're 10, 20 years behind other practitioners. So, you're going to need all the help you can get to try to build your practice, and you're going to need the marketing. So I think I would say it's pretty much required to have a social media if you are planning on coming out of school and opening a practice up in 2020 or beyond. But there's a lot of flexibility in how you can run your page. There's a lot of philosophies as far as how often should you post, what sort of content should go on there. That's the kind of stuff her and I have butted heads on a little bit. So you just got to figure out what works for you and make sure that your social media matches the patient experience. Because if people find you on social media and they see things, they're going to expect the brand, the experience to transfer over to what's actually happening in the clinic. So mix it up, show people that you're going out in the community, give people education, and show people, this is something that we just recently started doing, but I realized that people really want to see you working with patients, right? And it doesn't necessarily, if you look at the most popular chiropractic, there's a chiropractor in our roughly immediate area that has like a huge following on social media, like 100,000 followers. And he just like daily does these big adjusting posts, right? He's just blowing people up. That's really what people want to see at the end of the day is you actually working with patients, right? So we're starting to post more and more like actual in-visit stuff. But again, it's aligned with how we actually practice, right? So if all we do is post me just blowing up people's CT and adjusting people, and then they come in and I give them repeated movements and I teach them about breathing and I don't even adjust them on the first visit, they're going to be really disappointed. So make sure that the experience that you are promoting on your page is actually accurate. Don't pretend to be something that you're not, because your patients will catch you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one other thing, just to add to that, obviously we do have different, views on what our page should look like. I focus a lot on the aesthetics of the page, having proper branding. I think all of those little things, they may not be as significant or you may not notice them, but I pay a lot of attention into, how a picture looks next to another one, if our brand is on the picture, if, we're clearly showing our branding on our clothing, all those things matter to me. And Will's more focused on kind of like the overall, picture in the video. But I think he's absolutely right. You should focus on, the patient experience and providing content that patients will kind of relate to, so, one thing that we did is people are stuck at home and they don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, my back hurts and my upper back hurts. And we're like, what are people doing right now during this time? People are running more, they're sitting a bunch, shin splints are, a huge thing for people. Upper back pain, neck pain is climbing. And so those are the things that we decided to attack. And then I realized that, I practice functional medicine. So for me, it was more important that I start to educate people on certain things. So I'm barely starting to kind of, get out of my comfort zone and get in front of a camera and start talking to people about these things and things that I care about. So provide that kind of content, and don't just like slap a picture on Instagram and have a person, like a little whatever cartoon figure with like tech neck and say tech neck, like just tech neck.
What's that?
Tech neck?
Text.
Is it text neck?
Text.
Whatever it is. So don't just have like a picture like that. People want to see people doing stuff, they want to see you adjusting a patient. They want to see you, working on someone in the clinic. They want to see, actual stuff. They don't want to see, just like a generic, like these are the benefits of vitamin D, like really go into it and explain what's going on. So I think those are super important things to also consider when you're kind of developing the layout and the content of your social media.
I think you could really make tech neck work, just like all technology is causing bad posture. So you might be able to work with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I heard that. I was like, oh, did it change from text neck? Like, no, that's awesome, guys. I really appreciate the social media stuff, because I'm one of the people that I and I'm sure a lot of us are. I think it's kind of like the nature of, except for Jake Alec, the nature of chiros, and we don't like the technology. We want to just be good at our hands, and we don't want to do the social media aspect, when really it's such a large part about running a practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we're a little bit over an hour now, so instead of going into these practice questions, if you guys want, we can have you on here again and go over how you actually practice in office. But I think we're gonna, instead of getting into that right now, just cut it after all the business talk. Which has been awesome, and I hope super valuable for anybody that is listening to this in school, that is just getting out of school. This is probably, I don't know about Christine and Ted, but this is probably the most beneficial business talk I've had in terms of learning. It's so new for you guys, so it's so good to hear from somebody who's really close to being there, myself, and all of us. So now I'm going to go into my hot seat questions, guys. I want answers from both of you, and Ted hasn't done it yet either, and I want an answer from him as well. And so here we go. I'm going to, the first one is, if you can bring any scientist back from any field, who would it be and why?
For each of us, or?
Is that for both of us to answer?
Yeah, I want to hear both of you guys' answers.
Oof. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Who would I bring back? Oh my gosh.
All right, I'll go first.
I don't know.
I would go with Copernicus. I feel like he was really onto something. There was just not enough technology at the time for him to. He was the Elon Musk of the ancient times. So he would have done well, I think, in 2020.
Interesting. Yeah, I am not. Pass.
D.D. Palmer.
D.D. Palmer.
Perfect. Perfect. That's exactly who mine was too. Mine was BJ actually, but you know.
Oh.
Okay.
Ted, who's yours?
Stephen Hawkins.
It was like
he's got so much more left. I knew it.
Fair enough.
So much knowledge. He passed away.
Okay, what is one book that you've read that has changed you for the better and would recommend to other people?
What's one
book that's changed you for the better?
Book that's changed me for the better. I really like The Fred Factor. That's one book that he recommended to me when we first started dating.
That's my book. Wow. Okay.
It has changed me. It's in the bookshelf right now. But yeah, that's one of the books that has really changed me. And I think it taught me so much about work ethic and being humble and being passionate about what you do to help others. So I think that was probably one of my favorites. And I feel bad because I may have stolen that from him. But he gave me the recommendation, so here we are.
Yeah, I won't use the one that we just recently posted a book. We're going to start doing a weekly book. We're going to post one today. How Not to Die is a book that we posted on there that's great, but I won't use that one. I just read a book a couple months ago called Atomic Habits, which is really, really great. The Fred Factor is my favorite book of all time, but Atomic Habits is great because, I know we're not touching on clinical stuff, but whether it's clinical, business, you're always a work in progress, right? Like me clinically, when I thought that I was really ahead of the curve when I started practice, and I was like a mess. Like I was like getting in my own way, just vomiting on my patient, so I've really streamlined my clinical skills being in practice because I'm always trying to improve them. If I ever have a visit with a patient where I'm just not happy with how it went, I'll just like dive into that topic. Like if I have someone come in and they have a headache and I'm like, man, I could have done that better. Instead of taking the approach of beating myself up, I'll go study some headache stuff, or I'll go read something, or I'll go watch a case on headaches. So understanding that you're just a constant work in progress, and developing habits around building up that person that you are. That's sort of what that book preaches. So that was a great book. I really liked that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that sums it up into a MoPal thing, which is growth mindset. Always trying to get
100%.
better.
That mindset by Carol Dweck would be another. 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So I got two more questions for you guys. Who was the person that influenced your professional career choice the most?
The person?
Yeah, who is or was the person that influenced your professional career choice the most?
I missed it again.
Wait, sorry, we didn't really catch the question. Is it the person or a person who influenced our career choice?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, the person that influenced my career choice was my childhood chiropractor. She influenced my career choice because I told you guys I wanted to be a chiropractor since I was 10. So like I knew that was the path that I was going to take. It sounds so corny, but it's true. My mom has systemic lupus. And so she was being seen by a rheumatologist, and she wasn't really getting the results that she wanted to get. She was still in a lot of pain. And so at the time, I mentioned earlier, sister was working at a chiropractic office as an office manager. And so my mom ended up visiting that chiropractor, and she still practices. Her name is Dr. Katarina Schultz. She's in Arlington Heights. She was my childhood chiropractor, and she really had a huge impact on me because she had an impact on someone I love. So because she treated her, with kindness, respect, and she really cared about her condition and made a difference, it really stuck in my brain, and it really made me value the chiropractic profession and ultimately choose this path.
For me, I did have a chiropractor that helped me in high school, and he sort of edged me along to become a chiropractor. But actually, the person that really influenced me was my former boss, Brandon Marcello. He was the director of sports performance at Stanford University, and I was a strength and conditioning coach at Stanford working for him. When I was a strength and conditioning coach, there was you knew some anatomy, but you knew about training, and you knew a little bit about nutrition and sleep, but it was more just training and coaching was the area of expertise. And this guy he was one of these people that just knows everything about everything. And it was just amazing. It was he knew all about anatomy. He knew about the human body. He knew about sleep. He knew about nutrition. He knew about stuff completely unrelated to the human body. He was just a world of knowledge. And, he was running the largest strength and conditioning program at the largest athletic department in the country. So to me, wanting to be a director of sports performance in the NCAA, he was the top guy in the profession. And he was a complete, never mind, I'm not even going to say it. He was kind of a jerk, but he was extremely smart. And I was so amazed at his knowledge that it made me completely reconsider my career. Because he would take the most talented athletes, the most talented 18-year-olds in the world, Katie Ledecky, he was working with directly at that time. These athletes would come in, and he would design this program, and it was rehab, it was conditioning, it was nutrition, it was sleep, it was psychology, it was stretching, it was mobility, he was doing DNS, and this was years and years and years ago. And I was there's so much more to learn, and I felt like I could improve human performance more if I just knew more, and if I was better educated, and if I had a platform to work with people one-on-one. Because at the time when he was the director of sports performance, he was sort of just working one-on-one with super elite athletes. He was Tiger Woods and Condoleezza Rice and Katie Ledecky and Jeremy Lin and people like that. So his ability to break down a human being and build them up, and use all these different inputs to optimize their performance and build world-class athletes was so inspiring that I left the field and I went into chiropractic because I wanted to reach that next level of knowledge of the human body. And I'm very fortunate that chiropractic has done that. Chiropractic, as much as we like to poo-poo on chiropractic school, you really know more than you think. You know more anatomy than most people. So you come out of school with a great foundation to build off of throughout your career. So he was the biggest influence on me.
That's a great answer. I'll probably link to that in some of the show notes and stuff so that people can look that guy up because he sounds pretty incredible, actually. Last question.
Yeah, he still does a lot of
Sorry, he does what? I kind of faded out there.
He's not at Stanford anymore. He works for the Department of Defense now, but he you could YouTube his name, and he does a lot of lectures on YouTube, so you could listen to him. He's a bald guy with glasses, super smart.
Awesome. I'll link to that. All right, last question, which is a personal favorite of mine. If there's one mystery about the body and you can solve it or know the answer to, what would it be and why?
Sorry, did you catch that?
I didn't catch
Sorry, I heard mystery and then why. That's it.
If there's one mystery about the body that you could solve or know the answer to, what would it be and why?
Ooh. This is a really great question. Mystery about the body.
Yeah, it's tough because there's so much we don't know about the body still, you know, as not just me, but you know, in general.
Yeah.
So there's so much still to understand.
I would say for me, you know, because of my family history, I think one mystery about the body I would love to know about is more about autoimmune diseases, what causes them, what factors, you know, predispose you to them, other than what we know now, obviously, but, you know, what really, what turns on certain genes, what can cause, you know, more damage to one person versus the other. So I would love to know more about that.
Yeah. For me, it's something that's really fascinating is the work that Annie O'Connor does. You know, she was somebody that I really continue to look up to. I shadowed her in practice. If you haven't shadowed her, you should. She is the brightest clinician that I have ever seen work with patients before. So she's amazing. She practices everything she preaches. But her whole, you know, integrating the psychology of pain and the emotional side of it is really interesting because you will, you know, it won't take very long in practice for you to see these cases where you really, if you are familiar with Annie's work, you will start to wonder if they do belong in one of those central buckets, you know, whether it be affective, autonomic, motor, something like that. But, you know, the brain in general. But being able to tap into the emotional side of pain and using education, you know, I don't know if I only had one tool to use with patients, I would keep the ability to educate, you know, because it's really the most important thing in my opinion.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's a good other question.
Love that quote. I'm gonna copy that quote. You both had two really good quotes. Yvette's yours was, "She had an impact on me because she had an impact on a person I love." That's a great quote. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully, a lot of people find this super valuable, especially young docs and young students that are just a little lost on the business end, which I think a lot of us are. So it's been extremely helpful. And yeah, again, thank you so much for everything.
Of course. And if any of you guys have questions, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll give you guys my email. You guys have Will's email. You can email us anytime. We'd be happy to even jump on a Zoom call with you and just talk one-on-one. So.
Yeah. If we could, you know, if we could help people the way that Dave and Bob help us, that would be so great. You know, that would make me feel so good to be a resource for someone like that and to help the profession. And take everything we say with a grain of salt, because again, you know, we're very fresh, we're very new. We're just sharing what our experience has been thus far. But you know, there's plenty of people with a lot of experience and a lot of good resources out there. As well for you guys to tap into.
Yeah.
So.
And we talked about Dave and Bob, but two other females that have helped me specifically are, if you guys don't know Mopal Mel, you should know Mopal Mel. Her name is Melissa Lawrence. I don't know if you guys remember Mopal Mel. She was before your time, but Christine does.
Yep,
for sure.
She is amazing.
So her and my good friend Chelsea Klein. She graduated a semester before me, and she has been so extremely helpful. So keep those people that graduated, you know, before you, you know, in mind, and feel free to ask them questions because they have so much knowledge. Even if they're not in private practice on their own, they could really give you some great advice, and you can talk shop with them. You know, call them, talk about cases, see what you can do better, and get some feedback from them. So.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again. And